Okay. Day by day is better than, well, I guess it is what it is, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, I was listening to some videos yesterday. And it's so funny. I'm like so neurotic that I like listen and I don't know. I've always just been the type of person that like has to write everything down.
You like to take notes. I write things down not because I like to recall, but at the same time, sometimes just writing down helps me absorb it, even if I don't go back to the notes.
Yeah, that's exactly. That's what I would always do for school too. I just for some reason writing it down helps, but so I have like pages of notes, and but I don't exactly know who it was, but it was one that you were talking about. Like she literally was like exactly like myself. Like it was
painful.
So crazy. It's
painful.
Like looking in a mirror, or like listening in a mirror.
I know. Well, and the good thing is when you hear someone who's like thinking and positioning and responding the same way you do, is it makes you realize I'm not crazy. This isn't just my reaction. This isn't just my belief system. Like she thinks and believes the same thing I do, and she's responding the same way I am. What I've found over the course of helping people, maybe not to this depth, but getting to this depth, is it's pretty much everybody. And that's where to me, it's more and more obvious. It's social programming and how that social programming has gone beyond just like, oh, I'm assimilating into culture. It's gone beyond that to, if you don't assimilate, you're gonna die. Your survival relies on you doing what culture tells you to do. And if you don't do it, no one's gonna like you.
Yeah. And that was the whole thing was you were talking about it, the syndrome and how all things go together. She was talking a lot about her kids. So that's the point that kind of drove me home. Like when she was basically saying, well, if her kids just sit on the couch and then they have a test to take, I have to like get on them, so that is me to a T. So I'm super afraid. It kind of brought reality to me. Like I'm super afraid that I'm putting all my issues on my kids, which I'm sure I already have.
Well, I don't know how you can't. I don't know how you can. You know what I'm saying?
I don't want to screw them up.
This is why I think it's so hard to see. I can go back and look at my own mother, and I can see how she raised us, and I know her integrity. I know what it was, and it was very loving, but it filtered through religion. She didn't know that.
Right.
She didn't know that it was actually, when you say you need this religion, what is basically being taught unconsciously is you are worthless without it.
Yes.
And that's the part that I think us as parents, wouldn't it be great if we were aware that the more you teach let me see if this is a better word, the less lenient you are, the more strict you are to these systems. Because we could absolutely say the system we're in requires doesn't require, but in general, we're taught that when you go to school, you get an education, that is part of the system that not just improves you as a human being, but it improves your ability to function in our own system, right? And there is very much truth to a lot of that, right? The problem is if there's no lenience or grace for your child to be real and be themselves, then the more likely they are going to abandon themselves for that system. I have 3 children myself, 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and well, soon to be 17, 15, and 13. And I want them to assimilate into the American culture, which is so different everywhere we've moved, it's been different. We lived in Alabama, it was different. We lived in Minnesota, it was different. Living here in Idaho is so different. And so what I'm trying to teach them is to accept reality and do what you're told to some degree, right? But know the difference between what you're doing here and what is truthful within you. You don't have to get educated, but you know what? The truth is, when you find something you actually like and enjoy, you're going to educate yourself without having to go to a class. You know, the more you educate yourself, the more open-minded people tend to be, you know. So I'm encouraging it, but it's not required.
Yeah. And my kids have kind of been sheltered quite a bit. Like we moved, so we were in like San Diego, like track homes, very populated. Like we moved to like country San Diego. Like now we have 29 acres. Like it's country, and so it was a big change for them. And they were like kindergarten and third grade.
Totally. Well, and California culture is different from the north to the south.
Oh, right. But then they went to regular school for like 2 years, but then the school system here, wasn't like, that's kind of really important to my husband and I, and we knew like moving out here, it was not as good as schools, and so we put him in this like independent study homeschool program.
Yeah.
And so that has been since like my youngest was in second grade and now he's in eighth, and my oldest was in fourth grade and now he's in 10th. And he's not homeschooled anymore, so it goes just to eighth. Like once they start ninth grade, they went to my oldest went to the regular high school. But I think that like totally affected our relationship, like because I had to be on him all, like it felt like I could never like say anything good. Like it was always, you gotta do this, and I just felt like this barking.
Yeah, it changed your role as a really an open-minded and well-rounded person to a very, very fixated. And I can see with the way your symptoms are that it was probably it's a magnification of you not seeing past your nose around the importance of this education, and you have to do so well. And not only that, because you're taking them out of the school system and having to do it yourself, and you don't want it to be a bad mistake. So you're trying to control maybe your fear of it being a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so you're pressuring them to perform so you don't feel bad about making a mistake. That's understandable why you would be that way.
And I think made my food issues worse. Like the stress of it and the anxiety, just all of it. Like it just been hard years. Now luckily this is the last year, so the end of May I'm free.
Yeah, well, and they can focus on what's more important, which is actually their emotional and social needs.
Right.
I mean, you're intelligent, but how's that working for you right now?
I know, not very well.
No, it's useless. I mean, your intellect only is functional if you're not in survival mode. Otherwise, your intellect is hijacked by your survival mode, and you become a slave, and your intellect becomes a slave to your animal brain. That's like algae. You're thinking at the level of an algae, So it's amazing to me when people are surviving through education. What they don't realize is that education is useless.
Well, it's hard. My husband has a PhD in aerospace engineering.
Oh, he's super special. Wow, what a special person.
I know, like, yes.
Superior. What a special person we should put on a pedestal.
So he obviously values, because he has, like, what you're saying, like, these views of, like, well, if you just sit and eat bonbons on the couch, you're worthless. You need a good job. You need...
Right. Yeah, as if as if he knows exactly what's going on for that person.
Well, right. He has absolutely no understanding whatsoever.
Yeah, total ignorance, but yet but playing the role of God, right? This is what they should do. That is the epitome of narcissism. You know what? My favorite description of sin. I'm not a big fan of religious concept of sin, but the best description I have heard is ignorance. All sin is really just being ignorant. Everything you're doing is in ignorance. Everything you do that is harmful to someone or is harmful to culture, it's harmful to everybody, is based around the fact that you're ignorant, but think you know everything. It's not just being naive. Naive is different. That's innocent. Right. Ignorance is believing what you think is all there is to think, and then there's where people end up suffering. And that's the other part of it too, is ignorance always ends in suffering. So it is like the consequence. Yeah. And so it's understandable, but like I said, you could take someone like your husband, and I'm making this up. I'm not saying this is true, but if he's in survival mode, you can see that's why he has worked so hard to be doing what he's doing, and why he probably has underlying depression. If he did, right? If he's still in survival mode, because you can't stop. Plus, anytime he's in a social environment, again, I'm not saying this is your husband, but someone who's trying to survive through education, they constantly feel the need to tell people what they know. Let me tell you how I'm a PhD. They constantly need to tell you.
See, he's totally like, that was one thing when I first met him, like I was kind of impressed. Like you're this super smart guy, like, but yet you kayak and you bike and like he just used to
doesn't
teach
tell you.
The university. Like he's like, don't call me doctor, just call me my name.
Yeah, well, and see, that allows him to be neutral about it, here nor there about it. It to him is probably not that big of a deal. Plus, what most people who are not in survival mode become aware of is the more they know, the more they realize we know very little. So they don't take ownership. So again, it's kind of like thinking about people who are know-it-alls with dieting, right? The more you really become aware of, the more dumb dieting is. That makes sense. The more it's like, whoa, this is such a tiny thing, so small, and we think we know more than the human body that has really taken millennia to evolve to be what it is. So we're going to sit here and pretend like we're better than millennia of evolution. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that survival mode backing, what you've been doing. Absolutely. How can it not project onto your children? Because you're basically giving them, they're looking at you as a child, trusting your perceptions, trusting what you think, trusting your guidance into reality. They trust what you think about it. Well, to a point, then they think you're dumb, as teenagers, but you're basically in effect saying, if you're not smart enough, not only will I not love you, or I will be disappointed in you, but the world, you're not going to function in the world. So you really have to be smart. Otherwise, you're not going to survive. You're not capable without an education. Right?
Yeah, I know.
And there is some truth to that. It's not like I'm saying that's not true. I'm saying there is some truth to that, but where's the lenience in it? Where's the grace for someone to go to trade school, to become an expert in a field, right? My higher education I use it all the time. I can teach myself anything. That's what a higher education really teaches you. I mean, it's amazing, It's open-mindedness. The more you know you don't know nothing.
Yeah, and I can't really talk to my older child, my almost 16-year-old. He's just like his father, and he's super hard to talk to. But the younger one is more like me, so I can still talk to him. And like this morning, I was like, I was telling him about I was listening to this video, and I was like learning so many things, and I said I'm like, you do know that I'd love you no matter what grades you get. Like if you got D's and F's, I would still love you. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, I wouldn't love myself.
Oh, see, now he's been brainwashed.
I'm like,
shit.
No, I totally. I know. I totally.
So you know what would be good for you to do is what you just said to me, like, I wish I could go back knowing what I know now. I wouldn't be so strict, or I wouldn't have homeschooled, or I would have done it differently. I would have had someone else come in, and you know what I mean? You just tell them those things and say, I really messed up.
Right. I mean, I have said, I don't know if this is the best. We do the best we can. We have to make these important decisions that, you don't know if it's the right thing.
Yeah.
You just have to go with it. And I'm like,
And unfortunately, he's the guinea pig.
Right. It was him it was him who started the whole, because he had issues when he was young. He was super smart, but emotionally, he had ADHD, and he emotionally was like, couldn't cope with stuff. And
no, he sounds like me as a kid.
I mean, which is totally fine, but he was like in the counselor's office every week, and he was basically bored. They wouldn't give him murder work, and so I was like, okay, we have to take this into our own hands. And then this other program, like, they could give him 2 years ahead in math, and they could give him stuff that was appropriate for him, and then eventually his emotional, like, it was like 4th, 5th grade, the emotional part like caught up, like, and he finally was able to like not have tantrums anymore, and all like, just, it was really hard for a long time. But
and so you could say it was a good decision. It's just now you need to make sure you repair some of the ego aspect of it, and not only that, but who are you really? Are you your smartness? Is that really what you are? Go into identity, because it sounds like he's starting to identify by that, and you don't want that, right? Because
right, we've put these thoughts in their heads, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how could I do that? Like,
because you didn't know.
He would say like political views and stuff. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's 10, and he's basically saying like, oh yeah, people on welfare, like, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I'm like,
and that's terrible politics. Those are the worst ones.
I am like, don't be
ignorant
around other people. Like,
here I am, Judgy McJudger Pants, saying that's terrible politics. Look at me.
And, oh gosh, it's just so like we've constantly gone over, like, I mean, we've said basically, like, you don't have to live like we live now, but in having money is not like the end all be all. Like, there's tons of rich people that are miserable. Like, it's not everything, but
and it's never enough. It's never enough.
And I said, we've always said, but it does make, it can make life a little easier at times, and
you can put your food, if you put food on the table, you can put food on the table, and you can keep your house warm and keep it cool in the summer. If you have water, if you can get medical care, what else do you really need from money?
Right, I know.
Everything else is luxury. It's a luxury, and the key is being aware of that when you have it. Is to say, this is all luxury. This is first world luxury. Don't make it a third world concept of not enough,
And I think I don't think I have been, there's different parts where I think I've been a good mother.
Yeah.
And then I definitely, there's many, many areas I do not think I have been a good parent at all. And
okay, so here's something I want you to just think about. The fact that you're aware of that is a very big deal, because it's like you've stepped out of it and can have that relative perception to go, oh, okay. It's not that you haven't been a good mother. You've done the best you can with what you're aware of. It's just taken you stepping out of it to see the limitations of what you used to think or the limits in what you were aware of. And now there's so much time to make up for it.
There is.
Yes. So remember when I said if it's super strict, the key is that you have grace for yourself, that you recognize, I've done the best I could. If I could go back, and then you share that with your kids and let them see that you are giving yourself grace. You don't feel bad. You're like, I wish I would have done something. If I knew that, I think I would have done something different. You don't want to self-deprecate. Oh, I'm so sorry. No.
Yeah.
The goal is that you can show your children how graceful it can be. And like saying to your son, you know, if you got D's and F's, I would still love you. Like, to me, you're still a good person. You're still like at the source of the life that you're living is worth being here, you know? And even if he goes to jail, if you do something that puts you in jail, I'll be there every day.
Yeah, I know. I thought about that, and I'm like, I don't know. Would I? Like, I would be so like, oh my God.
Of course you would. If you just tell the truth, if you would just get over the ego aspect of it, you would, of course you would be there every day. It's a no-brainer. You just have to get over the ego of it. Oh, it's all about you. You know what I mean? Get over yourself.
Right. Like,
it's not about you.
The like loving with conditions like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I think that's totally like that was my mom. I think, and that was
that was that generation. That was that generation for sure. You know. And I really have compassion for my grandmother, for, you know, the generations from that time during the, you know, early 1900s to the mid-century. They were very superficially oriented. It was all about the way things looked and just the perfectness of the facade. And the whole time there was molestation occurring and horrible things and, you know, racism and horrible, you know, but at the same time, it wasn't horrible at the time. It's horrible relative to what progress we've made. You know, so they were in it, not necessarily seeing it, similar to you being in your parenting and not seeing it. I have told my kids, I am messing you up somehow, but I don't know that yet. I'm not doing it intentionally. I can't, not only that, but I don't know how you're interpreting everything. And I can't change that you think that the way you're interpreting it is true. I don't have if I knew the child was making up something and believing it was true, I would try to help communicate the truth of my reality so they don't but my kids are misinterpreting me and they're believing their interpretation is true. So what can I do? Besides tell them, I just want you to know that I'm messing you up somehow. And I apologize right now. Because I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm also sharing with them the grace that I'm giving myself to go, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm trying. I got to get you to assimilate into reality without being brainwashed by it. How are we going to do that? Especially when you want your friends to like you more than you care about my liking of you. Now your friends are brainwashing you by their parenting brainwashing.
Right. Oh,
and at the end, it's not my responsibility at some points.
Well, see, that's where I think, I mean, I'm very anxious or very excited to have them both in regular school next year because it's done wonders for the older one. Like, basically, it took me out of the picture, and that needed to happen because I am the biggest enabler, like, possibly. Like, I am so not, and I tell them, I'm like, I'm excited. Doing any favors by doing this for you. Like
I'm excited for their social development. To me, that's like that social development aspect of them as animals and integrating and learning how to get along with people that are hard to get along with or people that aren't like them and to be around people that aren't like them and having to have an open mind around different people, different upbringing, different races, different cultural backgrounds is so important to overall mental well-being and health. So
and it wasn't they weren't in a total homeschool, so like they had a teacher. They gave us the curriculum, like, so they went to school like when they were younger 1.5 days, and now it's 2.5 days. So they always went to school. Yeah, it just the classes are not as big, and it was just a little more shelter.
Yeah. I think it's going to be good. One thing you might want to talk to them about is what's it like to be in a school environment where someone doesn't like you. Prepare them for click.
Well, the older ones, this is his second year at the regular high school.
So he kind of gets it, and not defending yourself or trying to change who you are for people to like you or not, being okay with being an outcast if you're an outcast, getting to where it doesn't affect you.
Mhm.
What a tough. Well, high school's way easier than junior high, but
yeah, I mean,
I mean, look at how it affected you.
Yeah.
Here we are. How many years later?
Yeah, see, junior high was better. I know junior high tends to be a lot harder. Junior high was awesome for me. High school.
Yeah, high school was harder in college.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are very formative social years around having a social identity, and the goal is that your identity isn't based on what's socially predictable. It's based on who you are and then developing from there. So we're kind of having to go back to that space for you and go, well, who would you be? What is your reality if you don't have to follow all the fantasies and the allure of the glamour of the perfectionism and what you think you're going to get from it? If you could just be yourself, right? And you could just give it grace and be truthful about it, is that going to be good enough? You know?
Yeah, and I think it totally is. I just think it was that, like, living in a fantasy world and having, like you said, these completely unrealistic expectations and
for yourself, exactly. So the other thing is give your kids grace around what to expect from them. Just give them, we just want you to thrive. Thrive. What does that mean? That would be a good conversation to have with them. What does it mean to thrive? Doesn't mean you're popular. It doesn't mean you're getting good grades. It doesn't mean all of that. It doesn't mean successful outcomes. It means that you are enjoying your experience as it is.
Yeah.
Even if it's hard or not hard enough, you can accept it as it is and adapt and enjoy it.
Mhm. I think that I get kind of lost, and the same with that other gal is that fine line between, like how you said, I just have to let my kid fail. I have to have enough faith that they'll figure it out. Like, see, that's what I can't, like, I've never been able to do. Like,
well, you haven't been able to experience it yourself, so that's why. Because to you, it's true. Dark, blank space. So to you, it doesn't. You've just never done it. So this would be like allowing yourself to just be your weight. I can't do it. Well, how are you going to let your kids just be themselves? It's impossible. You don't even know how to do it for yourself.
Right.
You know, so the only way to learn how to do it is when you experience it. That's how you learn it within yourself. That was how I learned everything from within myself. It's always been for me having to experience it. Yes, I'm one of those, right? I got to put my hand on the fire. Oh,
right.
That hurt.
Right, me too. Yes.
You know, and then the hardest part was to not blame the fire. Right? So when you're in that ego position, you're going to blame. It's not me. Someone put the fire there. I put my hand on the fire. You know, it's the combination of that. You know, you have to look at it from such a bigger picture and have the humility to say, you know what, maybe I should stop doing that. I don't like the consequences. I need to look at why I keep on doing this instead of blaming everything around me. I got to blame my environment. No. Eventually you have to look inward, say, I got to be willing to not do that anymore. But in order to not do that, I have to give up what I think I'm going to get from doing that. Right? I want you to think about this. It's really not the weight loss that you're looking for. It's not. It's what you've attached to it. And so your issue is that you don't know what exists without what you want, right? What would life be like if what you are is perfect?
Mm-hmm.
Just think about that. What if what you are currently is perfect?
Then I don't have to do anything else. I mean, like, I can just
keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on doing what you're doing.
I can accept myself.
Yeah. All the OCD.
As I am.
Totally. You could be like, what if I'm wired to have OCD? Yep. Perfect. Don't worry about it. Don't criticize yourself anymore. Just let it be. You know?
Yeah, and I think I'm definitely making progress with myself, you know, in that. I just was kind of like, when I was thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I know once they're both in the regular school. Like, then I'm out of the picture. Like, I think that will help matters tremendously, because it was me. It was me being in the picture was not good. Like,
it wasn't good for you. It wasn't good for them.
Right, okay. Exactly. And so, like, my son, he doesn't. They have all the grades on the on the little app. Like you can pull up all their stuff. It's like insane. And I mean, I look every now and then, and I may say, like, oh gosh, what happened to that assignment, or like, and he'll tell me, and I'm like, that's and like, that's okay. Like, this morning he was like, oh my gosh, my GPA is gonna be like, in the mud this year, or whatever, and I'm like. He's like, I have a B in weight training because I'm too little and I can't, blah, blah, blah. And then the art teacher hates me and I definitely won't get an A. And I was like, well, so I can't get a 4.0. I'm like, well, I said, having two B's, that is awesome. Like,
that's not a big deal.
Don't be so hard on yourself. Right? You don't have to get a 4.0.
Your answer should be, so what? Who cares?
But I think we put so much emphasis on it before that we have, like, made them, I don't know, it's just like.
Well, the fact that you're aware of it is a sign that you're going to start kind of unraveling that with them. You're going to start being super gracious with it. You're going to go into, what is this really about,
what if my husband can't, like, I don't know if he can.
It sounds like he can. From your descriptions, it sounds like he's, it sounds like he can. Unless he's trying to live through his kids.
No, that's more me.
Okay. Okay, so you're projecting yourself onto your husband right now, afraid that he's going to be just like you. Give him a chance.
Yeah, that's true. I guess he's more, he's.
Well, give yourself a chance, really. I mean, think about how you're feeling about those grades. You're at this point going, is that really something to be upset about? It's not like you skipped school and you quit.
Right.
So don't treat yourself like, again, this comes down to, you are the way you are, and your weight. Is it really catastrophic? I can't handle it. Is it really catastrophe? Is the world ending really?
No.
Well, it would be if you're trying to reach a certain degree of perfectness as your norm.
Right. But see, like, if he had D's and F's, I would, like, hyperventilate.
Well, you'd ask what's going on.
Right, and then we just would have to do, what are we going to do about it,
Yeah, what's the underlying issue here?
Right.
You wouldn't freak out. You would be concerned.
But I do that, and then I go back, and, like, I totally messed him up with this driving. Like, he does not want to drive because, I was having a horrible day, and I took him for the test, and he didn't pass, and I flipped out. And
did you apologize?
I did, but, I think he's afraid to do it again, and oh my gosh,
well, then tell him, I want you to do it again. If you fail, I really don't care. Just do your best.
I said I won't get mad at all, like, but he's the type of kid that, like, has an excuse for everything. So, he said, oh, I studied. I mean, deep down, I know he did not, as much as he says he did, but he thinks in his head he did. And so,
you got to let him fail and do it again.
Oh my gosh.
And let him fail again until he's like, okay. And it's normal. You know how many kids fail the driver's test on the first time? I mean, seriously.
Right here, and here me, I'm like, you can ace the chemistry test, but you can't pass the driver's test.
They're so different. One's memorization and one is actually skill. Come on.
I know. I was just like, it was not a good situation, and
just go back and tell him you regret. Just go back into your humility and have another conversation about it. Say, you know what? That was just wrong. What a piece of shit thing to do, and I'm sorry. No one should ever have that. It's so normal not to. You just give it grace. You need to teach them. This is why I'm like, you need to talk to him. You need to keep on giving it grace. Give yourself grace. Give yourself grace.
Yeah.
So that he can relax. If you're the source of that fear, you're the one that's going to have to give it grace, and let him then from there figure his own shit out.
Right.
Because he's got his side too. He's got to be willing to fail again and not feel bad about himself, let alone feel bad that he's going to disappoint his mother. You know, a lot of the studies around parenting and adults, they studied adults that are in general thriving adults that are happy, adults that are, you know, really what they think it's adults that are successful and thriving. Not I have tons of money and I've got all this stuff, but it's people who don't have depression and they don't have issues and they're healthy in general, right? And they found that their upbringing across the board showed that the mother relationship gave them a ton of lenience. So that if they gave them freedom to explore, and then when they did make mistakes, that the mother in particular, was really gracious around, I love you anyways. It doesn't mean that you're not telling them you should probably not do that. It means that, but I love you anyways and you're allowed to make mistakes. So they had this sense of autonomy. They use the word autonomy, meaning independence, but a safe place to go and safety in the home environment as they learn and figure things out and fall and hurt themselves and make mistakes. It's the homes where you were not given freedom. Number one, you were controlled all the time. The homes that were, if you made mistakes, it was catastrophic. Those are the adults that have mental illness, and they tend to have abuse and substance abuse issues, depression. Okay,
so they can't cope.
Well, because they're holding themselves to expectations that are outside of their will. So they're rule followers, and there's no lenience if they are real and make mistakes. And so they tend to hold themselves to higher expectations. They tend to have this all or nothing symptom that is attached to survival mode. And then in reality, they constantly feel ashamed of themselves because there's no grace to be human. Oh, who am I describing?
Me.
And culture, there's like generations of that. You know, the baby boomer generation and their parents.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many lectures I had from my father.
I know. And you know what? You could just look at that and go, well, that was their way of loving us. Mind control, brainwashing, and no lenience, which is now we have all the science to show, well, the mental health crisis that is going on in the United States has a lot to do with those generations. We have enough evidence now to see the difference between the people that seem to be doing well and those that are in the mass public who are getting, you know, rehab, you know, being studied, all of the symptoms of people who have problems of how they were raised. No lenience, no freedom.
Yeah, and at least, like, I don't, because I'm a parent, I don't blame my parents. Like, I totally, like, okay, it's the hardest job I have ever experienced in my life.
I know.
Like, oh my gosh, like, I could do my regular job is nothing compared to this. And, but my sister doesn't have it. She's not married. She doesn't have any kids, and she blames my mother. Oh my gosh!
See that blame? Well, and that blame is not really giving it grace. She's not seeing as they did what they were supposed to do from that cultural, the pressure that was under you being a good parent and whatever good parenting was back then. Give them a break.
Right. I mean.
So you're giving it grace.
It's hard to understand that unless you're a parent yourself, you know, because you don't know how hard it is. Like,
and you just assume your parents should know better. Well, really, should they know better? Should they know better? I've had so many clients who can't get past their narcissism over their parents.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, don't complain about the consequences of your mental illness.
Yeah,
you're choosing that.
And we went away, and I mean, I normally never have my sister. Like we don't have like the greatest relationship, but I would never have her stay here with my kids. I mean, she was around when they were little. Like she did crafts with them. She was great when they were little, but she hasn't been around when they're like older as teenagers, you know. And so we went away, and she was like, "Well, I'll just stay." And I'm like, "Okay." Oh my God, it was awful. Like she constantly was messaging me, like basically, like, you know, my kids are like, it sounded like my kids are pieces of crap because they're cussing and this and that or whatever, you know. And
she's just out of touch with reality. Yeah.
I'm like, well, okay, like, you're not, you know, like when my parents come, like, they don't message me, like, they just, you know, if they want them to do something, then they ask them, you know. They don't like downplay my parent, or, you know, I don't know, it was just so awful, and I felt so bad about myself, you know. I just, I mean, and I told her, like, I wrote this big message, but because it kind of was like the straw that broke a camel's back, and then I flipped out. Like, but you know, it's just so hard. No one wants to hear. Like, I know what I should do and what I don't do, and you know, but
well, why is it that you should do that? Aren't you the only one that's? I mean, your kids are your kids, and they're the only ones that know themselves. But you have to get them integrated into reality, not some fantasy world.
Yeah, and see, I think that's where my husband, you know, we totally, like, that. Anytime we've ever fought, it's because of kids. If we didn't have kids, we would be totally fine. But like, we disagree on parenting completely, and he is way more strict than I am, and he thinks that our kids are horrible kids because all they do is play video games. And they don't do sports, and they don't want to do activities. And I tried them in everything. I tried
just
all
not
the
them.
stuff.
Yeah, he's got to learn to like them for who they are.
I know.
You know what? Here's the most important thing I want to tell you in the moment. With all the studies that I've read about this, it's the mother figure that is the most important. I know it sounds crazy. Yeah. I'm not to say that the father figure is not important, but when it comes to grace, the mother figure, for some reason, and they say it, for some reason, it is the maternal side that is gracious. That is what they found. The father side can be strict and an asshole, and for some reason, kids don't necessarily internalize it the same as the mother.
Yeah, that's true, and it's funny because they, like, every single thing, they come to me, they text me, and my husband's like, what am I, chopped liver? And I'm
pretty
like,
much.
They're afraid of you. I'm like,
you don't love them. You don't love them. You love your standards. Yeah, it's okay to say that to them too. Say, you know what? You're loving the way you want them to be more than you actually love them. So go fuck off. That's what I would say to my husband. That's why we're still married.
Yeah, I'm like, you
I'm not kidding.
You think they should be robots, like little, like you want them to do exactly, you know, act exactly the way you think that they should, but it's like you can't control. They're not. I mean, you can't expect them to respect you when you don't respect them, and you're treating them like crap. Like,
no, you can't expect them to do everything he wants them to do without having a substance abuse problem as a consequence.
Right.
So that's what they found when humans are not guided by their internal wants and needs, and they're guided more by the fear of the parents' love for them, they tend to have substance abuse problems. Again, I mean, there's so much cool science out there about this stuff. So if you're aware, that's so good. Could you imagine if you just trusted your husband's opinion without question, like he's the authority and you're being dogmatically controlled by his concepts of what success is? Could you imagine the state of your family's mental health?
Yeah, I mean, but it's just a mess. It's a mess this way too, because we don't agree on anything, and
I don't see that as a mess. I mean, I'm sure you do. Why do you have to agree perfectly? Maybe you're a perfect balance.
Well, yeah, I mean,
accept what it is. Accept him as he is. There's going to be a benefit to him, and then you need to honestly keep your role the way it is. You need to be the grace and the. Because your children will listen to both of you, and in the end, they'll have daddy issues that they'll fix as an adult, and they'll fix it with your husband. But you know what? By giving them grace as a mother, they're less likely to take their father serious.
Yeah.
So that's really the best you can. Let your husband parent the best way he thinks he should. He's doing what he thinks is the right thing to do. He just might not be aware of the risks and damages that go into that.
Oh, he's definitely not. And he's such a science person.
Well, he's reading the wrong science.
I mean, he's like, science like physics and that kind of science, but like psychology, oh my gosh, he's so far removed from emotions. Like
he thinks he's not a human anymore. Yeah, but then again, I just think if you as the mother are healing yourself, that you're giving your kids, it's like you're helping them not have to have as much therapy by doing it for yourself, right? It's like you're paying your kids' therapy bills right now by getting help yourself.
Right.
Right?
I just wish I would have done it sooner because
it's still soon enough. They're going to be in the adolescent stage until they're like 28.
Oh, God, that's true.
I know. So you know what? It's not too late. You're doing a good job, and you're doing just fine. It's happening as it should. It's happening the way it should, and there's no reason to criticize the reality that's occurring right now. Just let it be. Stop feeling bad about reality. Maybe that's what you need to hear today. Stop feeling bad about the fact that you're aware and you're going to make changes now. What? You should be so grateful for that. Thank God I'm seeing this.
I mean, and I kind of think, okay, it is what it is. Like, so they're obsessed and even addicted to video games. Like, I mean, what? See, my husband thinks we need to do something about it. We're allowing it, and I'm like,
well, that could be the one thing they like to do that balances out the insanity around the education part. I mean,
oh, right.
So,
and I'm like, okay. I said, do you realize like what I was doing at their age? Like, they don't get in trouble. So they play video games. Like, okay, I was doing a lot more. I was doing way more stuff that shouldn't. Teenagers shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. Well, they'll get sick of it too. They will. And, having them, I think you're right, having them going into a public environment with school, they're going to have activities, they're going to have social engagement. Your boys are going to start, getting girl crazy or boy crazy, who knows, right? But whatever.
See, they don't, like my elders, like he doesn't do any. He's in the public school. This is second year. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't
yet.
Yeah, I mean, he went to a few football games.
You know what? Again, he might thrive in college. Let him be.
Yeah.
Give him the opportunity. Give him opportunity. Say, we're going to go outside. We're going to go hiking. We're going to go whatever. Give him the opportunity, but shaming them for being here's what I would do with my kids is, here's what you need to do. You're going to go do this and that, and then you can play. I don't make them feel bad for playing video games. I just have priorities around what they need to do as a family member or team member of the family.
Right.
I see it as a team where we are living in the same house. Before you can do anything, you need to take the trash out. You need to do your laundry, fold your laundry. I need you to go take the dog for a walk. Put some earphones on. I don't care. Then you can do what the hell you want.
And see, I think that's the problem. Is I've you know how you say like I avoid anything that's uncomfortable, and parenting to me is it's almost like having a fight with someone. There's having to get someone to do something they don't want to do and be like disciplinarian. I am so bad at that. Like I am horrible.
Okay, how's your husband at that?
Huh?
How's your husband at that?
Well, he's kind of like he's kind of too hard on him, and then they kind of tuned him out like a long time ago, I think, and he just yells at him, and it's just like such a bad situation. But I think like I've been around, the one that's been around them for so long, and then fighting with my husband about me not being strict enough. I think I just tuned everything out, and I was just it's like I just shut down, and then I don't do anything, and then I just let them do whatever they want.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Try again. Again, honest and open conversations. Try it. God, I just feel like I've really sucked as a parent. We got to get you ready to get out. How's it going to be with roommates? Are you going to be able to have a roommate? Who's going to clean your dishes? So teaching, so something that I've done that my son doesn't even notice is I'm teaching him how to cook. He doesn't even know I'm doing that. I'm like, hey, we're going to make burritos. I need you to do the hamburger. I need you to get the beans out. I need you to. And then there's been a couple times he's actually been like, what can I do? I think he's starting to enjoy cooking, but in my mind, I'm like, I want to teach him how to make certain meals so when he goes off to college, he can make a meal for the ladies, right? Here's some tacos. Wow. You know?
Yeah.
So getting them engaged and helping rather than, you know, like if you're doing something, say, I need you to help me with this. Can you do this for me? Here, just vacuum the edge of that right there. And then they'll, okay. Blah, 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 blah. Instead of, you need to do this. You need to vacuum.
Yeah.
You get the vacuum out, you start and go, oh, crap. Could you help me with this? And you got to be okay with them doing a shitty ass job. Okay?
And I think that was, I've always, since I've been such a control freak, I've just always done everything myself.
Yeah, so you don't give them the opportunity. You're not giving them. There's so many really good articles on hover parenting. So what I want you to do is Google hover parenting, and that's your assignment. Yeah, it is not this is not intended to make you feel bad. It's intended to open your mind.
Oh yeah, no, I mean I definitely know I hover. Yes, that's I
well, you just take away. You're basically teaching your kids that they suck.
Yeah, I'm not giving them a chance to learn
to suck at something and say, you know what, you did the great job. Next time, see this right here? Can you suck that up? Can you suck that up? Here, right here. And then they do it. And then before you know it, you manipulated them to cleaning something. They didn't even know you were doing that. I do it all the time.
Yeah, that's a good.
I don't know. I have just learned with my own kids, sitting there yelling at them to do something doesn't work. But thinking about it like, you know, just unload the dishes for me. And I always say for me. And I'm sure, again, there's something I'm going to learn that there's something wrong with telling them to do something for me. But for some reason, when I say, will you do that for me? They go, okay, because they want to do something for me. And I'm giving them the opportunity instead of, this is what you need to do. I'll be like, please, will you just the bottom will help me out. Just the bottom of the dishes, the dishwasher. Put those away. Here, I'll help you. You and I can do it together. I've done that a bazillion times. Let's do it. Can you do this with me? And so I'm like, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put the plates on this, the island, and then you from the island will put it up in there, or vice versa. And before you know it, they've actually unloaded the dishwasher.
Yeah.
The other thing is consistency makes a difference. Like my son takes the trash out every Thursday. Every Thursday takes the trash out.
Yeah, I know. I've been very bad, or we both, my husband and I, have not been great with the consistency. And it's like right? I know all that. Like it's like I know all the stuff that I should be doing, but then I think I've just been always so overwhelmed in my life and not been able to cope. Then I am not able to implement these things.
So forgive yourself. I think that's a very valid understanding of yourself. You've really been dealing with your own issues. It's hard to be a present parent when you're not present with yourself, So again, you're getting help. You're going to save your kids so much money in therapy by you paying for your therapy now.
Right.
It's so good. And the other thing you need to do is tell your kids you're getting help. God, I'm really struggling. I'm seeing a coach. I'm not a therapist. But you're getting help. Just be honest. I mean, how would that have impacted you if you heard your mother say, I'm really not doing well. I'm struggling. I just need some guidance. I'm not perfect.
Yeah, My mom, she would have never said anything like that.
Yeah, neither would my mom. But man, if she had, it would have made me realize, oh, okay, she's human. There's so many
Right.
things. She's a human. Because a lot of
Mm-hmm.
my shame that I felt as a person, and I'm assuming yours is the same too, a lot of your shame comes from the fact that everything's supposed to be perfect. We don't know what that is, but clearly our reality sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so it's like, it makes you realize how shitty my mom's environment was for her to, how much stuff she just shoved down and repressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And didn't tell us anything. No, when she got older and, my parents were having some marital issues and they were separated for the year, she started talking to us now that we're adults. And after she got diagnosed with brain cancer and she was, in the process of dying slowly over the course of 5 years, she opened up about so much. And I was just like, Mom, why didn't you tell me that? When I was your age, when I was at that age, I wish you would have told me that you totally made out with 5 guys. Okay?
Right.
Because I believed that making out made me a bad person. But yet my mother made out with 5 guys and she's now admitting that it was fun.
Yeah.
I was like, Mom, that would have really been helpful. And she goes, I see that now.
Right.
I just forgive her so much because the way she was raised is to be quiet and don't say a word.
Well, yeah, I mean, society has changed and
totally.
parenting is completely different.
Yeah. I don't know. So maybe be able to say that to your kids. Just know, man, I am personally struggling with self-esteem issues. Open up. Open up. Become real. That will do more good for your boys than telling them to take the trash out.
Yeah.
Having compassion for your parents is very healing. And if they can have compassion for you as you're messing them up, you will save them a lot of money in therapy.
Yes. Yeah, that is very
true. It is. Their own parents are fallible and they're humble enough to admit it. You're basically unraveling their narcissism.
Yeah. And I think...
And teaching them compassion. Teach them compassion for their own parents. Not to feel sorry for their parents, but just having compassion to see that you're an individual person. You're not just their mother. You're an individual. And they're an individual. And you don't own them. They own themselves.
Right.
Yeah. You're just in a contract to try to help them get into reality, and you're helping yourself get into reality. You got to do that first. So you need to give yourself grace.
Yeah, I think I can do, I'm definitely getting there, and I think that I just kind of realized that this was, it was always I don't know, a thing that would just kind of make me eat, or, I would eat because of this guilt or just,
Well, yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense to me. The pressure that was building and the feelings of I suck, all of that coming to, fuck it, I'm done with my diet, I need to eat. So you can see how it's paired with the diet. It's not just the stress in your environment. It's the stress in the environment paired with a restrictive diet. Why food would be the natural decompression. Yeah.
It's like the atomic bomb.
Totally. It's like you could see the restriction with food. The environment you're in is like shaking up a carbonated bottle, and food is what pops the cap.
Yep.
It allows you to just deny reality for that moment. To feel good. This is why people drink.
Oh yeah, no, I know. I mean, I was not like I can't believe I'm not an alcoholic. The only reason I'm not an alcoholic.
Let's not transfer it to that, because some people do.
No, I know. I mean, no, right.
Yeah. Well, I love that you brought this conversation up. This past hour, we have talked nothing about body image. I mean,
right. I think
this has been a good conversation.
Yeah, because I kind of realized that I think there was other, other issues than just
Yeah.
the body image. I think, like, as I've gotten older, or from working with you, like I think that can be fixed,
like this, like
easily.
super fast and easy. It does. That's to me, that's once you stop gripping onto it, right? Can you believe you just said that? You just said the body image stuff is going to be pretty easy. Well, no shit. I love that you are really opening up. I'm proud of you.
Yeah, I mean, I never would have thought.
I know. I'm like, oh my God, you should go back to our like third session and compare this one to that one. What you just said was huge.
Right,
You're making me blush. I'm super fucking excited for you right now. Oh my God. Not to say that it's happened yet, but the fact that you're seeing, okay, that was my grip. And then the food issues are being, again, because of that ideology stemming from childhood and how I coped with sexual trauma and all that bullshit. We address that, we release that, and all of a sudden now you're seeing the tension with food connected to your shame and pressure with parenting and your husband. This is really common. Not with everybody, but it's very common. I have had clients at this point realize it's their marriage. It may not be their parenting, it's their marriage.
Right. Or it has nothing to do with the food.
It is the environment that brings them the most pressure. So some of it's the people's what they do for a living. I can't go back to work. I can't do this anymore. That's where the pressure is. So there is something that is environmentally involved. It's not just body image. It is also how they cope with their environment, with food and body. It's like remember when I described you, this is like a syndrome?
Yes.
So we can see it's not just that, but that is definitely it is pressurizing this. The body image is pressurizing this because when I cope with food, for this outer environmental pressure, the diet serves so that I don't have a weight problem. But then I have to be thin to meet these standards that I use to cope with trauma. So it's like a wheel, and these are all spokes to the wheel, right? And that's a lot of times how syndromes, whether it's polycystic ovarian syndrome or it's any type of syndrome, they're often described, any medical syndrome, it's described like, well, we have a wheel of symptoms. When they're together, it's not a disease, it's a syndrome, and it can completely dissipate if we understand the big picture, right? So that's what they found with psychological syndromes, that they don't respond to antidepressants. They don't respond because it's not an actual chemical imbalance. There's a chemical imbalance as a result, but because it's not the cause, antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds just basically numb the person, but the actual issues still exist. So like with an eating disorder, medication doesn't change that.
Right.
You still want to be thin,
That makes sense.
So in your case, we could say, okay, you're kind of starting to see these pieces coming together. Like when you add all this together, no wonder you were having this intense relationship with thinness and food.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to grasp onto something.
And you're coping.
To cut right. And if it's, not drugs or alcohol or
coping with food, and you need the diet to get rid of the
there's not much left.
Exactly. So it's kind of like how can you recover without unfolding all of this and going, oh, I see when I lift this up that I have a whole lot of shit storm around my parenting. And my kids and me feeling bad and me seeing what's going on and not knowing what to do because my husband and I bicker and fight about it, and then I might as well just eat some food and be obsessive compulsive about all the shit I got to do to clean up after all these boys that don't do anything. Right. And there's that victim position, right? We've talked about I know you've heard me talk about it, that poor me, my life sucks, I'm overwhelmed, I can't handle this. That's what stress is. So there's the environmental stressor, the need to cope because you're on a diet. You want to cope with food. You over cope with food because you know you're going to go back on a diet.
Yeah, it's like the perfect storm.
Yeah, and here's your syndrome, So and then you're obsessed about not gaining weight, and then you notice how you have to have a diet to keep you protected from your stress eating. So get rid of the body image. That alleviates a ton of work right there. It's like, just get rid of the body image. And then now, instead of the food issue, to me is, again, it's secondary or tertiary in terms of needs. Get rid of the food, the diet. The diet is magnifying everything because that's your primary need as an animal. Get rid of the freaking dieting. And the only way to do that is to get rid of the body image. Even if it's temporary, get rid of it. Now we go into the environmental stress that you're using food to cope with.
Right, and if I would just let up with the expectations
of yourself,
it doesn't have to be perfect.
Yes,
I don't have to control everything.
No.
Like, it's okay if my husband's, a mess case. If I could just relax. Yeah,
let him be himself. Yeah. Let him be that. He's independent. He's an individual too, and he truly believes that just know between you and your husband, you're both providing something for your children. And if you can offset some of his arrogance and self-centeredism projected onto your boys, which is love, he wants them to succeed in life. And he's projecting that onto them, no different than my mother projected religion onto me. It's so loving. That's very loving. It's just filtered through a tiny little straw, right? Yeah. Nonetheless, it's still loving. It's still sweet. His, shaming of them. It is. I know that sounds backwards, but that's love. He cares about them and wants them to be his type of successful. Okay?
Right.
Let it happen.
That's the only way he knows how.
Yeah. So I want you to know, I recovered. It almost took suicide, but I did. It's recoverable.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the fact that you're aware of it is way, way helpful for your boys because you can counterplay with it. You can give them grace. So anyways, you're doing a good job. This conversation was really important. So.
Yeah.
Who are you? You've done some thinking.
Oh, I know. No, and I have written down everything, so I go back and read through it and read over it and over it, and it's a matter of realization. It's a matter of coming out of the hole I've been hiding in.
Right. Well, you had to get to that place where you were willing to pause your weight. Again, in hindsight, me saying you should go back on the protocol, even though I knew it was a disaster, it was the best thing you could have done for yourself. Because that's what you had to do to go, I gotta stop. I can't keep on doing this. You had to do it. In and out, to go pause. This is ridiculous. So you had to do that. And so I don't know if you can kind of, now that we've gone through 10 sessions, do you see how this is working out? Is this different than you imagined?
No. I mean, I knew it wasn't going to be about losing weight. That's completely, I wanted to get deeper than that,
Yeah. Yeah. We had to go through some hailstorm there in the beginning.
And my husband and I, we went to the party. Like, at first, I didn't want to go, and then he was like, "Well, we never do anything social." And I'm like, I'm going through a period. I know it's been affecting you, and so I'm like, "You want to go? We'll go." And maybe it was raining, and I was just like, "Oh, I don't want to get in the shower and get all ready," but I did, and it was fun, and no one was staring at me. It was perfectly fine.
I know. No one's like, oh my God, right. Why is she here? Her butt is too big.
It was just like, okay, I realized that people don't care about that. They really don't.
You're not in high school anymore.
Yeah.
I know. It's so wonderful, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was great seeing all these people, and and then I was glad that we went. So
good. So that was good for you to go, I don't have to be super thin to enjoy myself.
Right.
I don't.
Exactly.
And for me to feel connected, I don't have to hide. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.